And
okay, we're fixing to go live, just to warn you.
okay.
Setting up your meeting for YouTube Live. Zoom and YouTube are collaborating.
Yep, just
Hi, everyone. This is Julia here with James. We're waiting on Lana. And James has some good, it's 11/11/22. And James has some good manifesting stories to report on.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so going with the whole principle, as Neville Goddard advocates, of test it for yourself and how you can visualize and help to produce an outcome for others. So a friend of mine, Serenity, said last night, who's going to bingo? And I said, right, let's manifest you a win then. So for my part, all I do is I visualize and see this messenger message come through saying, I've won. And hold that feeling of pleased for the other person that it's given them something to help them. And sure enough, a few hours later, I got that very message. And it's been a strange week. These, I don't know what you want to call it, astrological energies. It's been a very sort of dense, heavy feeling, and I did hit a bit of a low point. Was it yesterday? And I sort of laid down and I thought, hold on a minute, this is like we're going into a sort of depression, and it's like, not this time. I've got to come out of that before that takes hold. So today I went out and started off sunny, and then there's black clouds, and it's like, right, well, it doesn't look at this precise moment I'm going to be in town for long, or I'm going to get soaked. And it's like, no, we're pushed through. And it was amazing to watch these clouds. I don't know what speed they were going across, but this big black cloud seemed to dissolve and the sun came through. And the next thing is, I'm watching, it's like this bite's being taken out of this cloud, and it's dissolving and losing its sort of blackness, and then end up as clear blue skies. And then there was a lady came along and she got one of these plastic paint containers, probably about 5 or 10 liters. They're sort of quite a awkward thing to carry because they're a liquid, but they're a thick liquid, and so a bit awkward. And she was struggling, and I wasn't really in a position to help, but I thought, let's visualize, manifest, getting us some help. Within seconds, this guy said, I watched him, and he said, oh, let me give you a hand with that. And so she got the help to carry the paint can to the car. And I thought, wow, that was a quick, instant sort of manifestation, and watching it unfold. And it's like, wow, and it's in service of others. I'm not expecting anything back from that. But I mean, I did get something beautiful from that. I got a confirmation that this works. And of course, doing these, excuse me, doing these 3-day meditations that Lana has got on her channel. It's Lana A. Labonte, the other guest is coming on later. And it's only 3 minutes, and I thought I need to address this whole sort of laziness within myself. It's a bit like those New Year resolutions where you start off with good intentions, and within a few days, generally most people, it's fizzled out. It could be giving up drinking or smoking or something. But I thought I need to push through with this. And day 4 wasn't, I ended up 3 hours later than the sort of time I I'd sort of set myself around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I do this basically, it's like doing fist pumps and breathing. And wow, do you feel energized out of it? I've just done day 6 today, and it's a beautiful.
Yes, that would be great for people trying to quit coffee. They could do that instead of having their coffee, right?
Well, I had a coffee afterwards, so
You were double hyper then, huh?
yeah, it's good because you're getting the adrenaline going, but you're also doing this sort of fast in and out breathing. So you're not sort of building up so much adrenaline that becomes toxic in your body. If you start getting cramps in your hands or feet, that's like a warning of that. But you just sort of work it out. You work the sort of fist pumps. It's like doing a backstroke, and just sort of push yourself that little bit harder. And day 1 wasn't too bad, and then day 2, 3, and then to day 4, it's like, oh, my body's seizing up, and you can hear your sort of lower conscious side putting all these ejections, and this is aching. Oh, let's stop for a minute, and it's like, no, push through, and gradually that lower consciousness comes on side, as it were. And I mean, this is only in 6 days. Today it was more sort of automatic. It wasn't sort of, oh, I've got to do this. I've got to make time to do this. It's like, I know I'm doing this, and I am doing it. And I've set it up on the phone, ready, on paused it in readiness on the video. And I find it also helps to have it on a video, so you've got somebody else talking you through the steps rather than you sort of doing it on your own. So it's a sort of a guidance. I'm sure in time, as it becomes second nature, you can just dispense with the video and just do it yourself. But at this stage, it's like, I'll keep that there in the background because it's still guiding me through this whole process. But yeah, it's definitely worth doing. Definitely feel better for it. And it seems to go hand in hand with this manifestation, like you said on the video today, Julia, about think big. That's another perfect example of this. Anyway, I'll hand over to you for a minute.
Had to grab my mic. I'm trying to multitask here. we got several people. Well, we got several people. We don't have 2,000 like Jason. We got 6. We had 6. Now we have 4. We have Mish and Shiva and Finn and Angie in the chat already.
Brilliant.
And we're still waiting on Lana, I think. I'm trying to get, yeah, we're still waiting on Lana.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we need to start manifesting like super awesomeness.
Definitely.
Like,
I watched True Love 2 channel's latest video, which shows a story, and it's something I sort of alluded to, I think, in the last video, where we have this free will, but it seems to be within parameters. For example, there can be like an horrific accident, and people will say it's a miracle that they've survived. Now, there seems to be a predetermined outplay for the physical avatar, but within that, there seems to be a certain amount of free will for our true essence, our spirit. I don't know how that feels, but that seems to be the pattern that's emerging that I can see from all of this.
and we now have Miss Lana here, right on time. Boy, that is such a military tactic there, and that would be a right on time. I used to be like that at school, like, and I would like sometimes have to speed getting to school because I would just wait up to the last minute to leave always, and the other teachers would be like, "How do you do that? Get here!" Like I'd get there like right before the tardy bell. Sometimes so I'd have other teachers unlock my door and stuff.
You know, it's funny you
But,
say that, because interesting how time can sometimes be, okay, first off, I believe time is a prison construct in itself, because everything relies around and revolves around time, to the point where people manipulate and use time against you. So this whole idea of, oh, on time, late, you're always late. It's like the people who pick on people for timing typically are the ones who their only claim to fame is I'm always on time or I'm early. But yeah, that doesn't mean that they're contributing, if that makes sense. I only bring that up because funny thing being that I'm either just a little bit early or sometimes a little earlier, or I'm right on time. And some people may perceive, because they're looking for something, because they themselves don't have anything or a leg to stand on of their own worth, value. There's different ways you can interpret it. I'm speaking from my personal experience right now, where I've had people try to say that I'm late and imply that it's a habitual thing. And I'm like, I really don't know where that's coming from, because I'm always on time. You know what I mean? Like, so it's an interesting thing. I've kind of been, wrapping around going, what I realized was one morning I was talking with somebody about it. I said, what I found is most of us who are typically up to the last minute or on time like that, we're usually doing things. We're those people who are probably generators, probably the productive ones, probably doing more leading up to that point than the people who are rushing over to get, early to a place, and yet they're just sitting around doing nothing. The nothing doers who can only attach to their time as their crown and glory, as opposed to the rest of us going, listen, I'm just getting shit done. I have no concept of time. And if you're making that personal, then you're making it about yourself and projecting it onto another person. So I've always had kind of a love-hate with this whole conversation around time, only because I see how manipulative people are using time. They use it for or against. And against, again, that's duality. That's the polarity. That's where we're at in the world, where, the whole game is divide and conquer. So choosing a side, choosing this or that is gonna cause you to get caught up in the matrix, get caught up in the system that needs to harvest and harness your attention and energy. Like, oh my God, I got to be on time. Oh my gosh, like, what are they going to think? Blah, blah, blah. Right. So very interesting conversation there. Any thoughts?
yeah. What do you think, James?
Oh, the good old days. I've pretty much eliminated that entire thing out of my life. It's like we're meeting to have this live premiere at 7:30, so I just sort of tailor my day, and I work at quite a leisurely pace, so there's no stress or anything. There's no having to be anywhere at a particular time. So I count that as a rough guide, but I'm not left in a position where I'm rushing to sort of get here for 7:30. It's like I've got plenty of time, and I feel nice and relaxed. And day 6, Lana, of the what do you actually call that 3-day meditation comeback stroke?
The fists of anger, or the fists of fury, it's also known as.
That's the one thing I've failed on. I've not managed to sort of pull up any real anger. It's the only sort of anger is like sort of at myself, more sort of on day 4. It's like my body's seizing up. It's like I'm struggling today, and it's like, no, keep pushing through. So yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I'm sticking to it, and thank you so much for putting that video up. So I'm
my pleasure.
It definitely worked. But
yeah, anyone who wonders what we're talking about, I'll go ahead and post the video in the chat, and I'll put it in the comments too. And it's a technique that Alana shows how to do, that James started on. He's going to do it for at least 21 days. And he's on his 6th day. And yeah, with respect to time, it's so strange because I really don't have any schedule or anything, but I always find myself trying to rush and do things. So I have to make myself be like, I don't have to rush. I don't have to rush. I have to literally like tell myself that in my head, because I've just been so programmed, I guess, to rush around and get everything done as quick as possible.
Yeah, very much so. This whole reality is about doing and distraction and keeping you constantly chasing all the time. So I sort of looked at it of, well, I got 16 hours, eight out of the 24, so a third is already taken up with sleep or rest. So now this other 16, I need to re-examine that and find the balance. So it's split the doing and the being. So if I'm doing something, then there's time to then reflect on it and sort of bring myself in the middle of the whole thing, as it were. And yeah, it's pretty good, pretty awesome.
Well, and also because time is about splitting you, right? So again, with the duality, time is going to fragment you into chunks of time, chunks of experiences, and that's where we lose the fluidity of life by equating it to time, whether it's minutes, seconds, hours, centuries, years, months, days, weeks, blah, blah, blah. It's all that separation. It's all breaking up, whereas everything is constant and fluid at every moment. And it's a great way for control, because what do? We compare one moment to the next, which means we've chunked it into time again. So we're not being. The doing is to keep you running and rushing away from what you seek, which is always within you, which is only going to be sought and found when you are being in the moment, in the present, in the gift of the now, that here I am, here's my essence. Everything we seek outside is really within us. And that's just a reflection, a reminder that every time we're going out, we're going without. And we've basically gotten trapped again. The distraction.
Yes, very
Sorry, I
much. So.
could
It's like
go ahead, Janine.
I was going to say, doing that meditation, it's like the anger is just at myself, and this shift of perspective, and then you see the outbursts from people, and they're not expressing honestly the cause of it, which is an internal frustration. But it's far easier to then just project it at somebody else and say, you've done this, and that's not actually the real thing that's sparking it, and that is that inner work again. It's being honest with yourself and saying, what is making you angry? Because it's not them. They may have said something that I don't agree with, so it's like, hang on, I need to turn this inward. This thing about this, or this cliche saying about all the answers are within, it sounds so perplexing. I sort of keep trying to bring this back with videos to talk about these early steps and try and explain what these terms mean, because they're almost like a foreign language at that stage. But it comes a point with like intellect where it'll take you so far, and that saying about to know everything is to know nothing. It's okay, the intellect and rationalize everything has only got me so far. Now it's time to just let go of that and just sort of free fall. And you just know that there's like an invisible hand that's going to catch you. You're not going to come to any harm whatsoever. It just sort of grows from that, really. And it's definitely sort of expanding it's like, okay, I can see manifesting works. I can see it works for myself. I can see that it works on behalf of others. So, right, let's crank it up a bit more now, and let's see what else we can do with this. How far can we spread this out? And so far, so good.
Yeah, James was talking earlier about how he helped someone manifest winning at bingo just by, simple manifesting techniques. And like I was talking about earlier, that's something we can really focus on is our abilities to manifest. And like James says, it's one of those things, like everything, the more you do it, the better you get at it. With repetition, you get better. And now that you've gotten better, you can manifest bigger things, bigger and better. It's time for bigger and better now. Just like during the vapor canopy.
And funny enough, like earlier today in the course that I'm taking, which is really a great reminder, your mind is always going to tell you what you don't want to distract you. And what I mean by that is that, especially in the form, especially in this Think and Grow Rich, or all these different manifestation programs and books, and the law of attraction, it's focus on what you want, but the majority of people are focusing on what they don't want, avoidance behavior, rather than, the lack mentality. I don't have this, so I want that. So even the wanting of something is showing the lack of it, and that lack of it doesn't bring it closer to you. So you actually have to get into the physical mindset and the space and the set and the intention and feel it in your physiological body for you to truly manifest what it is you desire. You have to act like you've already got it. The moment you have said, well, I want this, you're implying that it doesn't exist in your reality. And so this is the big hang up that most people have in manifestation, and this whole power of the mind. Oh, if I just think about it, I'll get it. Or the positive thoughts. Well, there's more to it. And you really have to harness and discern, and also go to the root cause of things like, do I even feel worthy of having this? Sometimes we have the promoting and the demoting, right? Demoting is, I don't feel worthy of it, but the promoting is I know I should have it. It's available, and there's no reason why I shouldn't have it because I think I should have it. But you're fighting yourself, the push-pull again. And so we have to come back to the awareness of our conscious and unconscious thoughts, noticing what arises, where do we feel it in our bodies, breathing into those spaces, and really getting to the root cause, like James was saying. What is the root cause of anything and everything? Is a thought, a belief system. It's an attachment. And when our body feels pain, struggle, strife, some sort of imbalance in our physical body, that's showing a misalignment in the mind and a belief system that's not true for you. And so those demoting beliefs that keep us held back, hold us small, those are the things that we have to repattern. And you can't think your way out of it. You can't, I'll just sit here and do affirmations and meditate on it. Well, the awareness is the key. How you shift it is through the body. That's why with James, you're doing this fists of fury, fists of anger. The things that come up are just to bring awareness of what's underlying. Yes, and at the root cause of all anger is at ourselves. It's never to the other person. Wishing ill harm against someone else we feel has wronged us is really coming back at us. It's that drinking of your own poison, as they say, because when you judge another, you're breaking your own heart. It's a boomerang effect. Because remember to recognize the other as you. All they're doing is mirroring back to you where you're at, what your triggers are. When they bring up a charge in you, when you're triggered by someone else outside of you, they're just showing you your work to do. This is something I have learned from my personal experience. I'm like, oh shit, that's pretty funny. Okay, I'm in this moment where I'm at in my life. I'm just going to share personal. I'm going through a major transition where I have to actually mourn what I've known and been a part of for almost 10 years now. It's way overdue its course. It's been 2 years in the making of me going, wow, I've outlived this stay. I really need to move forward. And it's in the choosing that I'm going to do this, that I'm recognizing the death process, the grieving, that, wow, I'm actually noticing and honoring. I feel a little sad about this. It really is going to change the way my daily routine is. It's going to change the people I see, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. But a lot of times we will stay in that discomfort of a situation, knowing full well it's not serving us. It's not helping us to grow or evolve, but it's familiar because the mind wants to keep you happy or not happy. It wants to keep you safe. It doesn't care if you're happy. It just wants to base everything off the past knowns. It doesn't know the unknowns until they're revealed. And so even in my case, what I'm going through is like, wow, okay, this is coming up for me. It's very uncomfortable. I'm very grateful to have had the opportunities that I've had over these years. But the changes that have evolved in my own personal reflection and reevaluation of my own life is that the only way for me to continue to grow and go bigger, like Julia's last video, is for me to choose me first and recognize that with this little bit of a discomfort is going to come out something bigger and better. It's the choosing to do it that a lot of times is the biggest challenge for most people, because we want to stay safe and secure and predictable and the knowing, but nothing is. It's the illusion of the mind that wants to say, I know what's going to happen if I stay here or go there. But the times that we are in right now, this eclipse period, I know from my experience back in 2008, this is the time that if you don't choose the choice we made for you, if you know deep in your heart, your psyche's already been telling you, you're like, damn, it's time I got to get out of this situation. If you're out there on the fence about something, I can tell you right now, if you're even questioning it, that means you need to make a move. You need to make a choice in your life to change. Because if you don't make the choice right now, it's going to be made for you. And that is the shittiest way for change to happen in your life, because the ego really just gets obliterated and pummeled, because your mind will be like, oh, I saw this coming. It'll go through the whole gamut of, I didn't want this to happen. Oh, it's not, you play the victim. The ego loves to do that one. It's, oh, this was done to me, when in reality, it was done for you. It always is. That when that small door closes, an even bigger one opens. It's just, can you recognize where maybe you just didn't make the choice when you knew you should have? And don't should on yourself either. And acknowledge that, okay, like in my case, I was like, okay, divine said, you're not making the choice and this is unhealthy for you. And it doesn't matter if it was justified or not. It's time to change. And so right now it's the same scenario. I feel like a lot of us, I think everybody actually, if you want to get technical, it could be from the small, mundane to the extreme major life changes in your life, that if you're not making that choice to make a change, it's really going to suck when you have the wool pulled out from underneath you. And nobody wants that to happen. So these times we're in right now, it's like, what do they say? Piss or get off the pot. It's like, really, like, take control and ownership of, even if you've made mistakes, it doesn't make it your life a failure, because mistakes are simply choices. Take that, heavy weight off your shoulders. There are no mistakes. There are only choices. So when you think, oh, I made a mistake, remind yourself, I didn't make a mistake, because I can choose to change my trajectory. I can self-correct, course correct my life. Like, there's always an opportunity to change. Change is ever constant in our lives. It's the one thing you can rely upon, because change is always happening, whether you see it or not. So I think these are beautiful times, even if they feel icky, like sit in that ick, that like that's good stuff. For me, I love that. It's just because that's where I know growth is coming. And the interesting thing, I don't know if any of you can relate to this, I'd love to hear feedback, is that when I know, like even on a subtle level, like you think you made the change in the moment that you made the change in your mind, right? Like, I'm going to choose to change. But the reality is it was already in your energy body. It was already in your aura, and the universe is already conspiring to support you long before you think you did it, the choice or made the action to change. And if you've ever noticed that a lot of times that's usually when your mind starts to trip you up, like, oh, I don't know, do I really want to do this? Like you start to backpedal it. Notice that means the mind already recognizes that the energy is shifting for you and supporting you. So what I like to do when I start to notice my mind backstepping like that, or even just doing the whole like, uh-oh, I don't know if I want to do this. It's like, that's all the more reason. And I know I'm already supported because the mind's already freaking out. The mind is just, there to be the observer. But when you recognize, even when the mind goes into those little, tailspins, all it's showing you is what's happening. And it's okay. It's not a bad thing. I like to celebrate that. Like, oh yeah, here we go. Changes on the horizon. My mind's starting to freak out. That means I must have some energy coming in to support me. That's a beautiful thing. You can't fail. There's no such thing. So I will pause for a breath.
Right. The only constant is change. And yeah, there isn't failure. There's just lots of lessons. And yeah, you can make them hard lessons or you can make them easy lessons. And it is so true when you decide you're going to make a change. If you don't make the action behind it, something else will. It's so interesting. That's definitely happened to me a few times.
And I want to also, because Mish just said, usually the mind chatter is not my friend. No, you need to befriend that, because even that mind chatter that you claim you don't want is actually revealing yourself to you. So when you start to recognize that the awareness of that mind chatter is simply revealing the unconscious, because especially in meditation and these different programs, like you do things to reveal, you bring the unconscious to the conscious so that you can be in awareness. You want to know what goes on below the surface. That's your programming. And to know your program is to also give you the opportunity and the ability to change it. You can't just say, I don't like hearing that. I mean, essentially, that's what most people will say, oh, I can't meditate. The reason they claim they can't meditate is because they don't want to be confronted with the stuff they've suppressed and shoved down, and they don't want to hear the nasty languaging they use against themselves. We all do it. But to be conscious of it, to bring it into awareness, is the key to unlocking the door to your liberation, your freedom. Because you can't know what you don't know, but when you know what you know, you can know to do better. That is like just like the golden rule. It's like when you know better, you're meant to do better. It's part of your beingness. It's like, wow, I'm aware of this now. Now I can do better. You didn't know better before, but now you can do better. And the only doing better is just improvement, course correction, making different choices, shaking up your body, doing crazy things, because again, your wiring is through your nervous system. And the mind actually hijacks the biological energy that is needed for your body and your healing and your maintenance. It literally steals your life force, your vitality. So the more we're in the thinking mind, and I say thinking from the overthinking, like, oh, I need to do this. And, what if I do, like it goes into the crazy tailspin. It's actually hijacking your energy. So if you're someone who's an overthinker, do you ever notice how exhausted you get from your verbiage in your mind? That the more you're giving that energy to the mind and its craziness, as opposed to single-minded focus, go for a walk, recite a mantra, move your body, do the fists of anger. Like when you're busy trying to do all these things, like pay attention to the breath, pay attention to the shape of your mouth, move your arms in a certain way, make sure you got your thumbs inside and you're squeezing the thumbs, and then the mind's freaking out and the arms are hurting and all this stuff is happening. That's all meant to take attention away from the mind. And when we are exhausted, it's essentially because we've given away our energy, our life force to something that you'll later find is no thing at all. It's just a thought. It's a construct. And the body keeps the score in the sense that what doesn't align in the mind becomes dis-ease in the body. So we can always check in with our body to find out what's going on in the mind. Meditation is really meant like a mental floss. We need to quiet and become still to observe the craziness that goes on in our mind that is usually unconscious. And when we get to a certain point, we'll start to find we become energized in those moments of insight rather than exhausted. But sometimes you have to get exhausted in order to still the mind enough and exhaust that mind enough to set intentions, to create the ripple effects and the changes, hence the fists of anger. Again, like James said, the anger always starts within. It's always toward ourselves. We're angry that we even dropped our guard, or that we trusted somebody, or that we gave our power and attention to someone who didn't deserve it, or that we got upset at somebody. There's a whole like unfolding, like the snowball effect of the anger within toward ourselves. And that's where compassion comes from. So that when we start having that compassion for ourselves, like, oh, I was upset with myself. Yeah, worry is a waste of energy. It really boils down to compassion for self extends out to compassion for others. That recognize the other as you because you did it once too. And that the true God source energy resides in every single one of us and every little thing. And when we just come back to the stillness each time, to the presence of our true essence, that we are not the thoughts. The thoughts are just distractions from being. And we go back to Julia was saying about being rather than doing.
James, are you still awake?
No, I was listening. That just makes perfect sense. I've noticed you've got that saying, signs by the day. So this material realm has actually done that, because there's no longer a house being built, or it'll now have a sign outside telling you that it's a 3-bedroom house, one of whatever available to view, and all this increase and all these signs everywhere. But it's like, turn that inward, and it's like, look at the signs that come in the most beautiful way that you can't even predict. I was also thinking with that the law of attraction. Well, by the very implication, attraction means you haven't got. So I would go more with what Neville Goddard describes, the law of assumption, because the true sight is in the feeling. It's expressed as Jacob and Esau. Jacob is the hairless one. It's the inner man, but it adopts the outer man. We're sort of like Russian dolls in reverse. We have to pull ourselves in. So that if you imagine yourself as a Russian doll, you're pulling the outer one, and they're the parts of us. It's also expressed, as Ken Wheeler shows, with the magnet. The one with the smallest core is the most concentration of potential, and that sort of applies to us. So when we sort of go within, we sort of pull it, we gather ourselves up, pull ourselves in, and then we can radiate out further. So we're actually, again, the material realm shows it, that it sort of gives us the impression that we're small and insignificant. But the opposite is true. We're small, and the smaller we are, the more significant we are. It's perception, though. Nothing has actually changed except how I'm looking at it And through looking at it in a different way, the feeling has changed inside, and it's opened up this new door. And it's like, wow, just keep going with this, because that fear of the unknown is disappearing. Because, well, how many more times do I have to be seen? Just take the step forward. And then when you do take a step forward, it's like, see, what were you concerned about? What were you focusing on? And putting all this attention on these what ifs and maybes, instead of just focusing on, I'm channeling my energy into creating the outcome I desire. I don't want to miss the mark with that one. It's like I'm firing that arrow straight to the target, and it will hit the bullseye. Rather than, oh, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And I liken it to a child, and we are sort of crossing a road where, so you come into this world with no conception of fear, and you learn fear through experience, but then it's overcoming the fear. And part of that fear is the doubt in ourselves, and what can we do? And it's, no, that's not possible. No, there's no way you can do that. You're just an insignificant speck in a vast cosmos, and you're just smaller than a grain on Mars or something. But the opposite, this is the realm of Maya. The opposite is actually true. We're very significant in this cosmos, and it's a beautiful picture that's emerging, and it's like, I'm loving this. It's the ultimate game of what could be more of a better game than to go into the game to the point where you forget that you're actually controlling that player in the game, and you're living the experiences of that character in that game. And it's like, well, nothing's going to harm, nothing's going to hurt. And I'm seeing it unfold before me. It's just, well, I can't give anybody a blueprint to this. We're on very individual paths. So, but it's just take whatever bits that are of benefit to you. But like with the imagination creates reality. Well, if it's, say you want to find the love of your life or something, don't actually try and envisage what they would look like, or try and say, I wish it was that person, because you're interfering with their free will. So you just hold the feeling of, how would I feel if I was holding hands and standing next to, and you don't actually sort of see them, they're more like a ghost outline. And oops, sorry. Yeah, you just let the universe bring it when you've reached a level to receive it. I feel it's just put the desire out there, assume you've already got it, and don't place doubt or fear into the time and space aspects of it, because they don't exist. But they have to play out in this reality, and the bigger the manifestation and the more unlikely it looks, well, give it time, it will come. If you put enough feeling into it, it will happen.
James, I'm having a hard time hearing you, but they said they can hear you fine on YouTube. But, yeah, it's just tricky for me.
That's strange.
So yeah, and another thing I'm always saying about manifesting is that if you haven't done your emotional healing work and you have these negative judgments about yourself, it'll sabotage your conscious intentions, and you have to do that shadow work one way or another. Lana is focused mostly on doing it through the body, and language lessons of the heart takes a very mechanical process to do something, but it's not just thinking your way out of it. There is action behind it one way or another.
This is it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, this is like Ken Wheeler says, you can't think your way out of a thinking box. And it's the same with that whole idea of intellect. It'll only go so far. It is all in feeling, and it's revealed in feeling. It may be in mind pictures and things, but you'll know it in the feeling inside yourself. And yeah, it's critical. That is the foundation stone, never mind the external one, but the internal one, the very core, the very foundation of yourself is that losing the doubt and the fear. Because if you leave a little gap, they worm their way back in, and this is a realm of contrast. So you'll be shown things that look horrific. So if that door is open for doubt or fear to come in, it will rear its ugly head again, and it will just draw on that, all that good energy that you've sort of accumulated will then just sort of be sort of ill spent, as it were. So you can also take a strength and a comfort from this external realm while you've got this in the as sort of described in Revelations, wars and rumors of wars. Because how much do we really know to be true? It's all gossip and hearsay. So while you've got that playing out in the background as like a background noise, I'm not giving it any attention, but I'm aware of it, but I'm not being triggered by it either. And it's like, well, while that's playing out, that's telling me that everything's absolutely fine. When that stops, I might start thinking, hold on a minute, it's gone a bit too quiet now. But so all these fear stories that are put out in this media evil age can actually be a strength if you see it with that perception. And I can offer a sort of alphabetic isometric view, in that historically it would appear that the assault on humanity was more in the physical, i.e. you're sort of a slave on a Roman ship and your entire life is spent rowing and very little freedom to do anything. And it's moved into this technological age of being more an assault on the mind. So you've got the P for physical and the M for mental. So you've got PM, which is afternoon. That's when the sun goes down. So now you have an energy. If you can flip the polarity within yourself, you can then, that becomes the isometric mark. You sort of draw the line in the sand and say, the time starts now. So now it becomes EMP. You're always talking about these EMP bursts. Well, if everything comes from within us, well, the EMP can come with us. Well, that is the energy in the mind, and then that will lead to the physical. And I would say that this last week has felt very dense energy, but it's like, hey, bring it on. When I'm picking up these sensations, there's nothing actually wrong with me. I'm just on a vibration that I'm picking up new frequencies. So I know I'm going to come out the other side of it. There's absolutely nothing to worry about. I might take a little bit, but it doesn't hurt. It's just there. And it's like, I'll accept it and we just push through with it. And it seems to validate this whole journey. And like, I'm going to keep going with this. Sorry, I've talked for ages now. I'll hand over.
So with manifestation, because I was saying that Angie was saying, it's whether you're consciously aware of it, but we're always manifesting. We are master manifestors. They know this. I say they in the general sense. Hence the harnessing of our energy, the constant barrage of distraction, of separation, of divide and conquer. They know where attention goes, energy flows. And that means the do's and the don'ts. Because if your mind is always fixated on that, well, I don't want this. Why does that keep on happening? Well, because you're giving energy to the don't. The universe doesn't hear the word don't. Your mind may think it, but you're giving energy to whatever is after the don't. And so what's interesting also, because I really like that you brought that up about this battle on the mind, because again, I go back to the body's going to translate the mind. If you want to know your truth, use kinesiology. If your mind is saying one thing, tap into your body and ask, is this true? Because 9 times out of 10, when you feel discomfort in your body, it's just saying what you just thought was untrue, that you have a misaligned belief system. Your BS is speaking through your body. They know that if they can get you through the mind, it will create the dis-ease and the discomfort in your body. Because the attack and the battle of the mind is the more they can create that, again, this is separation and divide, but it's in your own mind. It's a conflict with your truth, which is why people are exhausted, because they're like seeing one thing, but not tapping into the truth within, which is why, again, meditation. Do I believe what I'm being shown? Do I believe what I'm being told? Is this my truth? Does this align? Feel it in your body. If you don't feel it in your body as an alignment, as a freedom, a flow, if you feel lodges of like tension, discomfort within your body as a result, that is showing you the truth of the matter. And so again, through the body, you're going to have sensations and feelings. What do they need? They need sick people, because then you become dependent on a system. This is the most toxic codependent relationship we've ever had across history. I'm sure it's not the first time either. Because if you look at across history, the same tactics are being used. Just, nobody seems to want to compare and go, oh, look at that. This is the same thing they went through. Look at movies. Let's celebrate Braveheart. Let's celebrate the rebel, but yet condemn it in real life. The one who speaks up, because God forbid, that actually might align with my truths, or it makes me feel uncomfortable because that person is showing light on my shadow of the shit that I need to do too. Right. So a lot of the conflict out in the world is this, I don't want to be confronted with my stuff. So I will punish and speak out against the one person as if they did it to me, as opposed to recognizing they're revealing to me. Every trigger is an opportunity for growth. Every opportunity that you have, it'll bring you closer to yourself if you're willing to recognize it, as opposed to vilify it, which is so funny because you see that so often. And that's the toxic side. The toxic denial of thyself through another is, again, creating more dis-ease in your body and more toxicity in the world. I mean, what happens within also ripples out. And I liked James' video the other day when you were talking about the weather. And I see the weather as just a reflection of, I think nature, personally, I've always seen it this way, that nature will always reveal what is going on in the collective. You see volcanoes, you see earthquakes, you see hurricanes. Okay, now don't get me wrong. I mean, I was in the military, so there's the manipulation stuff too. That totally does exist. But when you look around, that doesn't mean they're not trying to influence the weather to influence your moods, because we are 70 to 80% water, right? So they play off of each other. It's not one influences the other as much as it's the reflection, the ripples, the waves. There is no separation from us in nature. There is no, distinctly our eyes will see there are rounded shapes. There are, form, right? Because this is a little joke on words, but it's in the languaging. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. When you mind, you turn it into matter, into physical form, meaning you've attached meaning to it, which created the form of matter to begin with. If a tree falls in a forest, does it make a noise? Only if you give it importance and relevance and attention and energy, because then, therefore, you will have created it because you manifest it. Going back to the manifestation. The mind is what creates matter because it's the attachment of the belief systems, all of that. I was just reflecting earlier before this call just upon how vivid and distinct this particular reality is now, and wondering, had it always been this way, or we just gotten so good at agreeing and manifesting upon form, and how much energy and attention we put upon the objects that we see, which are no thing but a thought. Quite fascinating stuff. And truly, where we're at in the world today is they know that if they can infiltrate your mind, influence you, because it isn't. Logan from Decode Your Reality, I love that he said, it's not that anybody deceives you. It's that they influence your way of thinking. Because only you can deceive yourself. And it really boils down to not trusting your inner voice, your inner guidance system, your body. Like when someone says something to you, how many of us are like, I felt something was off. I knew in my body I had, like my stomach, or, whatever it is your indicator of your truth is for you. Start learning that. If you don't know it, you need to know it. This is where embodiment is so important. Like if you're tapped out of your body, you're not connected to your body, that you're basically a moving target, literally, because they know the way to infiltrate you is if you're not tapped in and grounded in your physical body. If you're trying to tune out, escape your body, then you're not going to have that mind, body, spirit connection. Spirit, I say breath. The Holy Trinity is the mind, the spirit, and the body. You take in the breath brings you into the present moment. The more you want to get present and really grounded, you have to be in the moment of the breath. And when you are paying attention and breathing in and just tracing and following that breath into your body and feeling it in all your cells, and you're feeling that expansiveness and the aliveness. And then when you're exhaling, you're feeling the release of whatever was stored in it. The more you're really present with that breath, then you start to notice when the mind starts to drop in, and you notice the beliefs and the stories and the mind chatter that comes up. You're like, whoa, wait, where'd that come from? Oh, whoa, what are you talking about? Like you're really like, oh, okay, I'm being presented what is going on when I'm not paying attention. So when you become present with the breath, you can master the breath. And then as the mind starts to drop in and you start to pick up the chatter, you can get more present, because you have to be in awareness of the mind and what your unconscious programming is for you to change it, to influence it. And so all of the stories, all the beliefs, all the constructs in our mind were given to us. We adopted them from our environments, from, the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, stress response. It's all trauma-based. And so we're either always trying to avoid pain, or we're trying, we're avoiding pain can be your motivation, or it could be seeking love, or, those are the only two things that really motivate us. Even the avoidance of pain is still the absence of wanting love. So love is missing. You're always looking for the love in some way. It's just, it's the negative versus the positive, promoting, demoting. Like, I want this because it's lacking. I don't want this, and that's not lacking. It's kind of an interesting paradox if you think about it. When you focus on, I don't want this, well, that's the funny thing. The mind's telling you what you don't want, and then you're reinforcing it. Whereas you want something, and it's again telling you what is lacking and what you do want. So when you can really harness all that, you can really try to harness the mind, because the mind is there to be your servant. We're not here to, kill the ego mind. It's there for purpose. Everything has purpose. We're not getting rid of anything. We're just alchemizing. We're taking the energy, we're harnessing it, and we're turning it into gold. Like the lead weight of the head, for example, think about it. We want that mind to be light as a feather. We want it to be just observing, witnessing, and being on the lookout. It's just there to communicate to the body where the sensations and the feelings are what are real. The mind, nothing is tangible. The body is what is tangible. That's the matter that came to form in this life. So these are the beautiful aspects that I like to work with embodiment and these practices of, Kundalini yoga has been such an amazing tool. And right now I'm in the program finishing up this yoga nidra, which it's still about body sensation and awareness. You can drop into a deep, deep meditative, what we call yoga nidra is the waking sleep, where you drop into those delta, the alpha, the beta, the delta, and the theta waves to reprogram you. It will impact you even if you just go out and you don't hear anything. But again, it's also the intentions behind it. It's I want to make change in my life. So now I have to do something. And even though you're not doing much in yoga nidra, physiologically you are. So when we talk embodiment, again, sensations are going to come up no matter what. But those are your inner guidance system. That's your GPS right there. So the mind makes up all sorts of stories to keep you distracted. The mind is there going to tell you every time when you don't want something. It's going to make up a story. And it's always giving you information. It's giving you clue into the driver at that moment. So whether it's fear, whether it's love, whatever it is that's going on in your life, just sit with the silence. Try to sit in stillness. There won't be silence. It's very rare that we make it to the silence in meditation. But when you do capture some moments of stillness and awareness of the mind, that's where the real juice is. Who said meditation was supposed to be quiet? I don't know where that lie was perpetrated, but like seriously, what it's really about is being okay with what comes up, befriending it and recognizing it's there to give you the gift of awareness, the opportunity to take that and grow with it. That, you know what? We're not always going to feel good, but we got to get good at feeling. Because when we tune out and we're tapped out, again, we become a moving target. So although it is a battle of the mind, that's the infiltration to create the dis-ease in the body. And so if you look over history, essentially that's what they do and have always done. Create you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, your body's not the way, this, that, or the other, compared to the advertising and the media. Always striving to be something that what we're not. When in reality, you are perfect as you are because you incarnated the way you intended. You manifested from the collective, from the void, from divine, from, the drops in the ocean. We are all the ocean. But you are having an individual divine experience. And that there's nothing wrong with it. Even if you think there is, again, it's just the mind. These are so fun. I really do enjoy our conversations already. Like this is my jam, because in all essence, where we're at in the world right now is all about hijacking you and thinking that all the stuff that's going on in other places, not in your current environment, although they're trying to affect that through that, because the more they drop these nuggets of this is a bad thing and this is going to happen. And it's like, wait a minute here. Look around your community. Who do you have in your inner circle? Are you happy? Do you contribute to one another? I mean, truly, if you hadn't already been choosing the people that are in your circle and you're just kind of going with, well, I've always been with that person. They're like, you're loyal to a fault kind of deal, right? At your own demise. And I've had to go through this several times in my life where, wow, I really believed that person was a good part of my life, but now I'm recognizing that I was only good for them. And that when it came down to it, what a shame. They're the ones that are going to suffer because I'm not, this relationship isn't helping me, or it's not supporting me. And that what I need more of in order to continue with that person is that they're unwilling to either meet me at that level or continue with me. And I think we're all kind of going through this. to the point where you have to remember that it's like change is like death. And that when people are no longer going to go forward with you, you have to actually mourn and grieve over the fact that it's your time to go. And if you don't choose that, there's only suffering. You know, the attachment is what leads to the suffering. So we can't take everybody with us. And there's nothing saying we were supposed to. And I was sitting with the idea of even religion, like nobody ever stopped to question all the scripture that's been written by man, which I always questioned when I was in Catholic school. Like I would raise my hand, like, I just don't understand. Even if in the so-called scripture, God supposedly said, don't worship me in four walls. So you've confused the heck out of me. He said, you don't even need to go to a church. So why is man telling me I need to go listen to somebody in a church? I was out in nature. I was like, I got God right here. God's in everything. And I knew that as a child. And then I look around at the world and I think, how many people have subscribed to this theory that there's a man on a throne in a cloud up in the sky that's going to pass judgment when it's really just us? And I'm not discounting what anybody believes. I'm just curious. And I like to have the conversation around, you know, oh, your angels, your guides, your this, your that. Do you know what? It's you. It's disempowering to place any type of power or more importance outside of ourselves. And I think when we wake up to this fact, that's when we really become empowered, that everything that you pray to, you think is outside of you, is in you, is you. Not in this form, but the real you, the true higher self of you. Because I also have another theory that our physical bodies cannot inhabit the vastness of our infinite souls. So when we talk about, awakening or upgrades or next level and all the shifting, it's really just that you cleared out some of the junk from the human conditioning. And now your soul can come in a little bit stronger and a little bit more because it can't inhabit the full body. And so when you think in terms of praying to this external, you know, hey, please help me, I need help, blah, 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 it's really you. And how crazy we've been led to believe it's anything but us. Even the people around us that we dislike or we do like or whatever it is, that's us too. And that even when it comes down to it, and, you know, when we could go into the whole conversation around the AIX and, you know, the this and the that and all this stuff, it's like, you know what? It was all done by design. Yes, I do understand there are levels, but it was done by design. And then again, it's going to be the separation and the divide of good versus evil. But do you know that even the God source, the collective, is doing this like a game? Because it is like, oh, what's the next level? All of us are doing this together to up level. And there is, whatever ends up happening in the end isn't going to be so bad. I mean, I know there's a lot of fear around what's next. Why not just, how about what's now? So much of us are coming from, I know, because I was in the military and I worked for the government, and it was go, 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 work, 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 work. You know, like Julie was saying in the beginning about how I'm always rushing, and I'm still even rushing, and you catch yourself. Like there's not enough hours in the day because you're trying to do too much. You're not trying to be, you're not just being. We're here to have experience, and we lose experience when we let the mind hijack us, and we lose energy because it gets caught up in this external stuff. So there's so many paradoxes in looking at it, but when we stop giving the importance outside of ourselves and start recognizing that everything is us and it is a reflection of us, it's just that we're trying to remember our truth, our knowing, like, wow, I am a powerful being. I have manifested every single thing in my life. And whether I've labeled it good or bad doesn't make it either one. It's just the mind again, because we live in duality and polarity. And when you label one thing or another, it's essentially showing the imbalance, the good or the bad, the plus or the minus, the feminine, the masculine. It's like you just showed there was an imbalance because you couldn't see that the wholeness is the two, that you need each other in order to be whole. And we're all really fragmented. So we're really trying to reclaim those pieces of ourselves to become whole. And that's what shadow work, or we used to call it just the work or healing. You know, everybody's going to market a new term, right? Like it's like, how about return to being a good human and starting with loving yourself? And that in itself is the challenge most people have, is working through the old programming that I was never good enough and that I always have to prove myself. I mean, the first thing when you're born from original sin. Coming from all religion, it's like you're constantly told you got to prove yourself. And yet at the same time, they claim Jesus died for our sins. Don't be a martyr. It's like, what? You see how conflicted they created this reality with people and the conditioning and the brainwashing? These are conversations that a lot of people are afraid to have, because then it goes against everything they've ever known, everything they've always believed. And most people don't want their apple cart upset. But the only way we grow is in really going through the discomfort, to really have the uncomfortable conversations, because there's always insight, there's always wisdom by sharing experience, sharing, our own personal, because a lot of what we share, what we have conversations around, is based on our personal beliefs and experiences. I'm going to pause now.
Yeah, it was Alan Watts who said, and puts it very well, who was the first blasphemer? And as Neville Goddard puts it, you play every part. So when you say to people that you have the power to create within you, you're going to be met with a lot of objections at various levels. I feel in some ways the ones that express it as the most anger, it's resonating the most in them, but they are not honest enough with themselves to accept that that is actually true. But it's a brilliant reflection, and it's like, wow, we're just playing out the script here. This is fantastic, because I'm not going to meet it. I'm not going to fight fire with fire. I'm just observing this, and it's like, this is a beautiful experience. And Alan Watts said the last one that tried it got kicked upstairs, and we can't have democracy in heaven. But it is very much reflected in a language of a different era, but the basis of it is absolutely true. If you think about it, this Jesus character, there was a jeering crowd, so clearly his message didn't suit everybody, because in modern day terminology, you could say they're on a different frequency. And I'm a firm believer, and the picture I'm seeing emerging is this ghosting out. It's almost like you're vibrating on a different frequency. The earliest signs are always unfamiliar, so a lot of people will say, oh, I'm feeling all this energy. It's like, well, you've asked, you've opened up, you said you're willing to accept new experiences coming in. So what do you expect? You should take responsibility. You've opened up to allow these energies to come in. So now you're feeling it. But it's like if I was to say, I'm thinking of a house. Now, if I'm talking to like higher self, doesn't know what a house is anyway, and just by saying house, nobody else knows. So it in the same way, it's this communication with the body, listening to what the body is saying, and understanding the language that it's speaking in, because it's not speaking in words, it's speaking in feeling. So we've got to learn to adapt to and tune into our bodies. There's a nervous system all over the body. It's basically like all your fire alarm system. Well, they are sensory, so they will communicate sensations, and it's whether we can understand what those sensations are, because they're always going to feel strange. It's like that first panic attack. You don't know it's a panic attack when it first happens. You haven't even got time to think about it. It's basically like a static. That's the best way I can describe it, like a static electricity, because there's this conflict. The mind is not able to process this new communication from the body. It's never had it before, but it involves then taking that step. It's going to feel unpleasant to start with, and then I can speak from the experience of this. It's like I never realized that was like a sign, and that was like a step that leads to now. And I'm glad of it now, because I can look back and understand what that experience was all about. And it wasn't bad at all. My perception of it at the time was, but I'm further on in the book. I'm on a different chapter. So now I understand the previous chapter, and I can just keep following this story, as it were. And it's beautiful the way this is unfolding. It really is. I'm thoroughly enjoying this experience.
And that's a great place to be, where you can look back at things that when you were going through them were so traumatic, and be glad that you went through it, and notice what you've learned from it and how much it's, improved you. So yeah, that's like a wonderful place to get to.
I also wanted to address, because I think it's Kadia in the chat had said, I asked my guardian angels for proof. They're with me. I asked for a sign of a colored feather. 4 hours later, I found a small colored feather inside a friend's. Looks like a Bible. And how was that me not understanding? You're okay. So first off, I'm not here to convince you. I'm just expressing that when we are ready, we will understand when we're meant to. It's easy to think outside of ourselves until we recognize everything within us. The more we intimately become and really befriend ourselves, because most of us have been conditioned into the duality, the polarity of life, that everything is separate from me, that I don't have power, that you give power externally. The idea that you're open to receiving a sign means that some force is going to bring that to you. Now, I've also been recently, I've listened to some other people talk about something that I've also wondered, that, this whole thing about when you go to the afterlife, this is going to bring up a whole nother subject, but the whole, don't look at the light. You need to actually question, hey, who the heck are you behind there? Because that could be part of the trap of this prison system, right? Like, we've just assumed from people talking about their death experiences that the light, everybody sees this beautiful light, and then they have a life review, blah, blah, blah. Now, I bring this up specifically because you have to be very discerning when you are calling upon entities, whether you think they're benevolent or malevolent. Because depending on how vulnerable and I'm going to use the word gullible we can be as humans, that if we don't know our truth, I'm going to go back to, you need to know your inner truth. Tap into your body's wisdom. You have to feel it for yourself. Is this true? Now, I'm not saying that you feeling you have guardian angels isn't true for you, because I'm just expressing that that's still you. Those guardian angels are an extension of you. For my entire life, I've had guardian angels, but who's to say that wasn't just me from my future self, or from another part of, time, space, continuum, reality, what have you. I'm just throwing out these possibilities, potentialities that we have been conditioned to think everything is separate from us when it really isn't. So you know, like Angie says, the light at the end of the life. And there have very few people have had these conversations. And I've also thought the same thing, because I did a plant medicine experience where I literally experienced all the pain that was created by my actions, words, or thoughts from others. I mean, like, I literally felt it, experienced their experience of me experiencing them, the whole thing. And it was pretty profound and very humbling. I don't necessarily believe in all this, these stories that we're being told now, realizing that what if that's a setup so that we just go back into reincarnation, that we don't have to reincarnate into this life. We could go to the next level, whatever that is. There's so many.
I don't buy into that whole. I don't buy into that whole soul trap scenario at all. I think it's just a way to fear stuff beyond this realm. You know, people already fear so much here, so now they're fearing what they should do when they die. You know, I
Yeah.
think that you know, we're immortal creator beings, and you know, I kind of go with Tom Campbell more than anyone else, and he's done a lot of out of body experimentation as a scientist. And you know, he just put in Open Your Reality just put out a video with him, a little 8-minute video explaining the transition at death, you know. And it's just where you go, you have your life review, and according to Levette, you have exactly what you just described with the plant medicine, where you feel the pain that you inflicted upon everyone else. And but then after that, you decide where you want to go, how you want to grow, and then you even decide what reality stream you want to go into, which is different from what Archaics has been saying, where, you know, this simulation's going to end and we go to our real avatars, which is kind of what you were describing earlier, even though I know you don't listen to Archaics much, or you haven't yet listened to
Oh
him
no,
much.
I've listened to a lot of his stuff too. I first found him through Decode Your Reality and all those guys. Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that that whole scenario about worrying about what's going to happen, and it's a soul trap. But you are right, we do manifest, and how it works, I don't really you know, we can go through the simulation theory description of how it works, or we can just go, well, source just manifests for us. But it really does work, and we can manifest physical things into our reality. We can manifest anything. And that's why, you know, I made that video today about upping our game and, you know, thinking big and really manifesting things. You know, you can manifest way more than a feather. But James manifests those all the time, right, James?
Mm-hmm.
But sorry to interrupt you along. I just wanted to go into that whole soul trap thing, because I think that's just a fear mongering mechanism, and whether people intend it to be that or not. And I don't think it's a good thing for people to focus on. And it's not important, you know, because, you know, just like here, kind of whatever we believe, we manifest, and maybe that's the case after the fact too. So that's
Oh,
just
I
my take on it.
100% agree with you. I'm not buying into the soul trap fear mongering. I'm just putting out all the potentialities of what is possible that I have not adopted personally. But the reason I brought it up was to always question and be curious, and don't just accept what you've heard. So the reason I brought that up as an example was because I was listening. I have to figure out who it was I was listening to. And I was like, wow, that's kind of something I've kind of wondered myself, to where when you do go to the transition, how many people are willing to question, hey, who's behind the light? You know, whatever it is, it doesn't mean it's a trap. It's like, what if it's the man behind the curtain, just like the Wizard of Oz? And you're like, and he turns around and comes out, goes, and you just won the next prize because you were willing to question as opposed to just accept and go along with it. You know what I mean? Like, that's how my mind operates. It's like totally outside the box. What if you stopped being so accepting in such a way that, well, you know, this is what I've heard, so this is how it is, that you openly go, oh, well, you know what? It's possible that it's none of those things and nobody's ever questioned it. Like, that's how I grew up. Question everything, even the things you think you know. Because if you don't question it, that's opening you up to whatever, which is very blind, right? So I'm not saying don't have blind faith, but have discerning and awareness in your faith. Like you need to, again, go back into tapping into your body. This is why we're in this physical form. We're not here to tap out. We're not here to escape. The body is our tool. It really, truly is our greatest guidance system that even though when we transition, we're not going to be in the physical body, we still have the soul remembrance. We also still have the mind that we're supposed to work in conjunction with the body, that if you condition your mind and your body, right, you know, in the right way, in alignment, you get right by the time you go to transition. And we do actually do rebirthings and you know, experiencing what it's like to die, so that we don't have that at the very end of our life, whenever that may be. Like that's one of the beauties of Kundalini yoga, is that you can work through all of that stuff before you get there. But it's really important that we get a lot in alignment, again, the shadow work, the healing work, whatever you want to call it, because when you get right in the mind and the body, you get that holy trinity of the mind, the body, and the spirit. When you get right in those three, transition is going to be more like, hey, something feels off over here. I got questions, like, you know, bring that up, whatever ends up transitioning for you. Because if you don't question it, then who knows what's going to happen? Hey, I'm just like, anything's possible. Why not be the curious person? I'm going to be the one up there going, excuse me, I got some questions over here. Is there someone I can talk to? You know what I mean? I'm sure that I can't be the only one who thinks like that, but I'm open to anything. I want to be curious, because if we stop losing our curiosity, then we just basically, that's where we lose out in life, is life is curiosity, life is experience. And again, it's going back to the attachments and the belief systems. So, you know, these are great conversations. Like, don't say that my way is the only way. You know, this is what I love about talking here, is I'm just putting out an idea. I don't attach to it. Be curious, because that's what life is about. It's the non-attachment that we were told by the gurus and all the people before us, that choose the middle way is the right, is the way. And that's not choosing this or that. It's the path of least resistance. It's the flow. It's the neutrality. It's the curiosity.
Right. As Tom Campbell always says, be an open-minded skeptic. And
Yes.
that if it's not your experience, it's not your truth. But you can experience things and know for yourself. And you can experience what it's like when you die if you really want to. You can put that intention out there. You can do some techniques, and you can experience that if that's something you're concerned about. And, you know, this whole thing about reincarnation is a negative thing. Well, it doesn't have to be a negative thing. You can come into this life and be a master of it and have a wonderful life. You know, that's another issue I don't like about that whole soul trap narrative that's going around. It was probably that guy Howie that you might have listened to, because I know you listen to a lot of people that he's been on their podcast lately. But yeah, it's just you know, reincarnation, these reality streams we come into, whatever you want to call them, they're here for us to learn and to grow. And we pick these before we come back in. You know, it's not like we're just put here, that we're sentenced here to this and it's a negative thing. In my opinion, I think it can be a great positive experience, and it should be. That's what we've been programmed to think, is that we don't have any control here. We're just victims, and we have to just deal with it and try to get out of here as soon as possible and figure out what's going on there, so we don't have to come back here again. No, I see it the whole other way, that yeah, it's awesome here. We're going to make it even more awesome, so we want to keep coming back.
Yeah. And I mean,
That's my
really,
10 cents.
yeah, I'm with you. It really boils down to, anytime you're in conflict in the mind, you basically in that separation divide. And again, that goes back to the infiltration and the whole point of the battle of the mind. It's the battle of the mind is to keep you constantly conflicted in your mind. And again, just drop into the heart, drop into the body, keep going back to the breath. Because whenever we slow it down and become present, all the answers are there for us. So the conflict only arises when we allow the externals to influence us, to attach to something. Again, the BS, the belief systems, you know, people who say something that kind of sounds right, whatever it is, you know, like always check with yourself. Don't assume that you're getting always the information that is true, because it may not be true for you.
The way I look at this, I can see there's a pattern here. It seems to be that we come into this experience to learn from the experience. Two things come out of this. One, what is limiting us is ourselves. And two, it's when we step into the unknown where something new opens up. So faced with that sort of white light, I'd be sort of asking, well, what's this bit? Why isn't anything else speaking here? If I'm being shown maybe ancestors, family members, things I'm familiar with, that implies that's like staying in a comfort zone. So I'd be more inclined to say, no, wait a minute, what's in this unknown? And looking at this in terms of like a computer game, it's like the character of Mario in level 1, it's like saying to this character, well, what's level 2 like? And then if you think about what do you carry across from level 1 to level 2 and to play Mario on the next level, you don't have the memories of what Mario went through on level 1, but you've gained from the experience. So when you're faced with that turtle or whatever it is, I can't even remember in that game, you already got the experience to know how to hop over it, when to jump, and you carry that through. So I feel I would be, if it's presented like that with a white light, that I would tend to think, well, hang on a minute, why isn't anything speaking from this bit? What is over here? I think I might like to look over in this bit and just see what happens, because I've learned from the experience when I step into the unknown in this physical experience that something wonderful opens up, and it's the only thing that stopped it is my doubt and fear of what could go wrong, or all these objections that the lower conscious that is programmed to just draw on its experiences. And of course, this is something new. So it's going to put all these objections. No, don't do that. Oh, you don't know what's going to happen. Well, how am I going to learn unless I step through? So I feel that template carries on. So faced with the white light, I would tend to go more into the what I can't see, because that's also something in this reality. We can't see ahead, as it were. And then we invent and create all these illusions of why we can't do something. But they are just that, they're illusions. So be fearless beyond death, as it were.
All right, guys. I think we've given everybody much to ponder with this discussion, coming from Florida, the UK, and Portugal. And Shiva Shampoo, that's such a great handle. Let's see that Archaics is doing a live later, but it's too late for me. This is already almost past my bedtime at 9 p.m. here. But thanks everyone for showing up in the chat. Great conversations there. And Lana and James are just amazing how much they can say. And yeah, there's so much to ponder for sure.
Never stop seeking.
Right. I like James's thing about, well, I'll go look in the dark part, and I'm like, if the white light's not a natural light, I definitely won't go toward it, because I'm always mind sitting with candles in the dark because I don't like unnatural light.
Think of it like a child in a bedroom, and behind that door, there's no light on in that hallway. But what if you never stepped into that darkness? You never found there's a light switch out there and you can put light out and see where you are. But if that fear was that great, what a tragic life you'd have if you never left a room. How much you'd miss out on. And it all takes that first step of, I might have to step through that door and step into a dark corridor, but then I can find the light. And then it opens up a passageway. And again, that's like a blueprint for this experience. And after this experience, it's something we can take with us. So I'm
Right,
all for it.
embracing change, embracing the unknown, and seeking adventure. And
Yeah,
things fun that way.
if this is all about an experience to learn from, well, I just thought that's the thing to learn, is to feel no fear and embrace the unknown, and because we're trained to think in the negative side, but what about there's a positive side as well. So it's like, see what happens. We're not going to come to any harm. So yeah, just go.
All right.
Thank you,
Well,
James and Julia.
thank
Thank
you,
you,
and
Julia.
thank everyone in the chat and everyone that'll listen to this in the future. And remember to always focus on what you want and help others if you can.